Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is our Supportive Talk, episode 2. We're going to focus on grief at the holidays. We know that holidays are fastly approaching around the corner, and we wanted to provide you some tips and some guidance, as we know that this is a very difficult time for everyone right now. As always, my name is Jessica, one of the bereavement counselors here at Avow, accompanied by my wonderful colleagues.
Just to echo Jessica, I wanted to welcome you. Again, my name is Brianna, also one of the adult bereavement counselors here at Avow.
And my name is Claudia, one of the bereavement counselors as well. Welcome back, guys.
And my name is Nancy, and I'm pretty new to Avow, so I'm very happy to be here with my colleagues.
Wonderful. So first and foremost, I just wanted to bring attention to a little bit of the obvious, and I know it's something that we're probably tired of talking about, but there is a pandemic going on, and it has certainly affected everyone's year, and we need to take that into consideration when we start to try to make holiday plans. This is not a normal year by any means for any of us. And with holidays come a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure just on a normal year. So when you start to think about what you want to do for the holiday, remember that you have a lot of factors that you may need to be taking into consideration. And we may have to lower our expectations for our holidays this year. Travel plans aren't going to be as easy. Large family gatherings might not feel as comfortable, and that's okay. You are absolutely allowed to make decisions based on the factors that we do have against us right now. Another thing to remember with holidays is typically it's those around us that make the holidays what they are, and we tend to hold on to these traditions, and sometimes they're comforting and sometimes they're overwhelming. And to just really give yourself that time to check in with yourself and what do you feel is manageable for this season and what's not. And know that whatever that answer is for you, that it's okay. That we don't have to put this extra pressure on ourselves or assume that our family members need us to do certain things when maybe they don't. Maybe they're already lowering their expectations and we just all need to have a conversation about it. Okay, we certainly know that on top of this collective grief that the nation is feeling with the pandemic, you're also grieving the loss of your loved one. And so that's going to add a lot of additional stressors and concerns for you when thinking about what you want to do this holiday season. So please know again that this journey is your own, and each individual member of your family may have a different opinion on how they want to honor or remember your loved one, or which traditions they want to carry on and which traditions may not be as important. And that's okay. Everyone can bring a little something different to this season and share what they think is important and what might be okay to let go of, and just know that it is just that. It is okay. I began talking about grief at the holidays in one of my groups, and they had such amazing feedback. They had said, this is the time to recreate what the holidays mean to me. And I just felt that was so true. It is our time to recreate it. And to know that just because you may have to do something this year due to the pandemic doesn't mean that that's your new tradition forever. And so just allow yourself that grace that this year is going to be different, and whatever that different looks like, hopefully is supportive to you and to your needs. And then when you look to the future for next year, you can always make changes. Does anyone want to add anything?
I agree. It's all about expectations and putting your needs first during this holiday season and expressing those expectations to your family so that there isn't extra stress and pressure, like you said. Mm-hmm.
One takeaway, I think, also from this pandemic and all of the change that has occurred is constantly adjusting our expectations of the way that things should be, right? And where does that come from? Is it really being created in ourselves or by the pressures of others or society? But I think you did a really great job at explaining that and how it's okay, how we can adjust and just give ourselves grace. And in those moments alone, we already obtain a lot of peace regarding our decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know I say this a lot in my groups that we need to try to practice not to should on ourselves. And especially
I
when it
like
comes
that.
to this holiday, we tend to get in our heads with holidays. We should do this and we should all be together, especially if it's our first holiday without our loved one. And again, in theory, that would be wonderful, but that might not be feasible and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that saying, don't shit on yourself, right? That's great. I heard you say that in one of the meetings and I thought that was excellent. And, also during the holidays, because the kids are not so interactive on Zoom and they're not really talking to their friends, it's really important for maybe parents to really, really listen carefully, because sometimes kids suffer in silence. And it's important to just, ask them, what's going on? Let's do things together. How do you feel? So let them be a little bit autonomous with their feelings.
Mm. Love that. Listening to the needs of others and ourselves is so
Absolutely, yeah.
So I wanted to talk specifically about how to do that. How do we say no? We have such a negative connotation with saying no and have this kind of guilt conscious around it and feel kind of uncomfortable when we have to say no. I know we're typically an overcommitted society here and we say yes to things even if we don't want to, or even if we know that they're going to add stress in our lives. Why do we do that? So we're going to talk about, just some examples here and ways that you can say no. And there's a quote that I really like that reads, "Saying no isn't always easy, but often necessary." So I just wanted to give you guys a few examples again of how to say no, how to implement these things that we're talking about. If we come to the awareness that this is an expectation that I just can't adhere to this year, then how do we approach things with our loved ones or with ourselves and saying no? Sometimes you don't want to say no entirely, but maybe not right now. And an example would be, "Thank you so much. I would love to speak at your event. I'm honored that you asked me to do that this year, and the timing just isn't going to work for me, but please keep me in mind for next year's summit." So that's an example in a professional setting in a way that you can say no, not right now. You can choose to explain yourself plainly or not. You can also just simply say no, no thank you, politely, and that be okay. You have no obligation to really explain yourself, but if you feel that that would be beneficial in this relationship, you can say no and just briefly explain the complexities and the unpredictability of grief, right? We don't know how we're going to feel on a given day, that you may not have the energy to entertain on that day. So you can be honest and explain that this is how your grief experience has been for you, and choose to provide them some education so that they're better able to interact and support you. Communicating your needs is really important. Another option would be to make a counter offer. So I found an example that I thought was pretty practical of an individual who was working all weekend and their friend asked to help move into their apartment on Saturday. If you'd like to participate, but you can't, you can make another counter offer with terms that you can manage. So suggest spending less time helping out with the physical move and offer to do something else, like breaking down boxes or organizing the kitchen later in the week when you're not occupied with work. You can suggest a retry later, right? So maybe you already committed to something else and you want to participate in this activity. So you can suggest retrying maybe at the end of the month or another time. I do really want to get that coffee with you, but this week is just way too busy. Can we try again in 2 weeks? Lastly, being honest can be really beneficial. If we make excuses, it can cause greater stress and just really prolonging having to say no multiple times. This is kind of a funny example. If you don't want to go on a date with someone, So if someone asks you, you should say, thank you. I'm humbled, but I'm not interested in you in that way. Instead of, I'm really busy this weekend. Well, they're going to ask you next weekend. So to just be more honest in those moments, and really to spare the both of you from having to have this repeated conversation and come up with more excuses. If we can be honest and kind in that first interaction, you're already off to a really good start. Don't commit right away if you're not certain. That's another point. So you can say, I'm not sure right now. Let me think about that. Again, going back to the unpredictability of grief, you can choose to pause before you give an answer and be ready to repeat yourself. So since we are not familiar with how to say no, and we often say yes to things that we may or may not want to engage in, you may have to repeat your no several times to the person in order for them to hear you and understand you. All of this is really empowering when you can learn how to say no, and again, check in with yourself and what your needs and desires are. When we're grieving, we lose a lot of control over our circumstances, and things are occurring outside of ourselves that we wish were not. So in these little moments, there's small victories when you can check in with your desires and adhere to your boundaries. So that's kind of what I wanted to share about how to say no. And if you guys have any feedback on that or other examples or things that you have used, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, Brianna, I think those were all very, very great. And I like that you pointed out just being honest with yourself, because it's your time, it's your grieving time, it's your healing process. So being honest with yourself about what you want to do and what you don't want to do, especially during the holidays, because a lot of added pressure and people asking you to attend different events, or and you may not be ready to do all of that. So planning ahead, it's another tip that you guys can think of and reflect on. What do I want to do during these holidays? What am I ready to do? And not feeling guilty when you're saying no, or when you're not available. If you're not available emotionally to be somewhere, it's important that you say no to those things. Because let's say if you go to an event and and you see people laughing and they're not grieving in the same way, that may make you feel a little bit more sad even. So just thinking about what you're needing at this moment. Some people like to start new traditions too, to honor their loved one. I've heard clients listen to their loved one's favorite music all day, or create an ornament to honor their loved one, or cook their favorite meal that day. So just thinking about what you want to do and how you want this to go, because it is all about you right now. And if all of that is too much, then you can just skip it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think of it as a holiday season. You can just think about it as another day where you're just trying to find peace in your heart and whatever it is that you have been doing, for your healing process. If you do decide to go somewhere, another good idea is to, maybe if you can, drive yourself, to places that you're going to. That way, if you don't feel good, you can always leave when you're ready. So that's another good tip. But I agree, with Brianna, and being honest with what you want to do and not being afraid. No, it's just a word, just like yes, so it's just practicing and saying it more often. And you may have people say, oh my God, did she really say no, or did he really say no? But it's okay. They'll get used to it, and you'll feel better not compromising, and doing things that you really don't want to do. Because if you do, then that does create anxiety, that does create more stress, and you don't need that additional stress and anxiety right now. So yeah, those are some tips, and definitely we're also here for you if you have any more questions, and about how you can handle different things that come up. Yeah, do you guys have any other thoughts when it comes to just like handling different situations when it comes to the holidays? And
I think an important thing to remember is that no is also a complete sentence. And so sometimes it's hard to come up with how we want to word something or how we want to say something. We're often nervous to offend somebody, and a simple no is absolutely appropriate. Again, reflecting on your own needs and your own wants at that time, and really what you can handle. To what Claudia had said regarding the plans, I always tell people that often making a plan is very comforting to us. We're taking back some of that control, and sometimes it can get us excited and give us something to look forward to. But just know, like Brianna said, if you wake up that day and you don't have the energy or you're too emotional, that you're absolutely allowed to change your mind. There are no rules. Again, as we always say, there are no rules to grief. And really, there's no rules to the holiday season. We have followed traditions because it has worked. And really, maybe in the past, however many decades, there hasn't been an instance where we had to ask ourselves, does this still work for me? And maybe this is your first time asking that, and that's okay. It's a little scary, certainly, but you're allowed to have those questions and you're allowed to change your mind. We really want this to be a time of peace for you. We do not want this to be any additional stressor. It'll certainly be sad, but if there are certain things that you want to ensure happen, make sure that you're speaking up. I've heard from a lot of people in our groups who they are often more sad because family, they aren't mentioning the loved one who has passed. And oftentimes that's out of fear of upsetting other people. And so everyone is kind of walking on eggshells, afraid to make other people sad, when really maybe all that was needed in that moment was sharing stories about that individual or was remembering past holidays. So if that's going to bring you comfort, please vocalize that with whomever you're celebrating with.
Absolutely, ladies. That's all such great advice. It's a little different, I believe, for kids, right? Because, you know, they're already, especially the teens, they're already going through their own hormonal problems and issues and feeling like they have to fit in, and physically they feel inadequate at times. So what can we do to help the teens, right? And of course, they also shut down and they isolate. So it's good to try to allow them to speak their mind and to not suffer in silence. You know, there's also a lot of fear involved with someone that has passed away. They may not understand. They may not try to grasp the idea of somebody, of not seeing someone again. So what I did was I kind of lined up a few things differently than, you know, kids, what they do, they play video games a lot. You know, they're in school now, they're on video games, they're trying to do their homework. Kids are social, they need to interact, they need to play games, they need to get out there and be a little physical and just, you know, go to parties and reinvent themselves as well, right? So to start off with, probably, you know, during the holidays, some people may like to bake, right? And cook. So involve them, talk to them, rather than just staying in their rooms. You know, playing video games is very stressful as well. They become very competitive, they become anxious, their heart starts to race. So we have to try to kind of bring them down a little bit, right? So they can have some downtime to sort of pay attention to their own feelings and just get more involved with family. So baking can be something nice for them to do and learn something new, right? So allowing their parents to kind of encourage them to come and do something new. The other thing, being home, I mean, they're always home, but they're usually studying or doing homework. But if they have like a permit or a license, you know, maybe get out with their parents a little bit and try to start to work on their skills, especially that the roads are empty now. And this way it gives them also a chance to maybe look around the neighborhoods and see decorations and, you know, kind of allow them to have some nice holiday spirit besides the fact that they're suffering, right? The other thing is possibly redesigning their room, you know, put some holiday spirit into their room, or even just setting up a little tree with memorabilia of the family that has passed away. You know, I always like the tree of life. So some people may not have Christmas trees, but the tree of life, you can add so many different things to it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas. It could be a Jewish tradition or any other type of tradition that you may want to incorporate. The other thing, I read this on Google. This was really interesting. Netflix has what they call a virtual movie night. And it's something that is free. And it's almost like you can get together all your friends, you know, or several of your friends, and have this movie night. You can chat with them. You know, you can. I love to watch old Christmas movies. I'm sure they may not, but you know, there's a lot of new Christmas movies that they can watch, or any types of movies that they can enjoy, rather than always being on their video games, right? So this is a kind of like a nice evening, like going to the movies, but you're doing virtually, right? Um, the other things, oh, this is really neat. If you have an instrument that's kind of laying in the corner and it's collecting dust, right? So you pick it up and you can learn to play an instrument, you know, online on YouTube, or maybe your parents may allow you to do one-on-one, to do lessons one-on-one. So you can become a rock star too, right? So that's pretty cool. I really like that. Language. You can learn a different language. So this is kind of just ideas to get them away from the hustle and bustle of school and maybe having different responsibilities. You have to do that, you have to do this, you have to clean your room. You know, even though they're grieving, they still have responsibilities, right? And they don't know how to say no. So that's why it's important to try to get them to interact more with their families and ask for help, and maybe write down their feelings and give it to their parents. I mean, there's an awful lot of things they can do. Working out, of course, you know, that helps the mood. It builds up dopamine, and it helps children, teens, you know, feel better about themselves. So there are various things that kids and teens can do to try to feel better about themselves, even though they're grieving and feeling sad. And you know, and the important thing is to talk about it, like we all have been saying. Talk about it, or redirect yourself, and you know, maybe you can find a new talent while you're grieving as well. So it doesn't always have to be sad. You know, it could be writing a song or something just to help you along the way.
Yeah, those are really good ideas. I really like the involving them, you know, in other activities. That way the parents too can notice, you know, if they're doing okay or if they need extra help. You know, I know a lot of kids, when someone passes, they get anxious because then they get afraid of someone else in their family getting
Right.
hurt or passing too. So just being able to be together as a family and tackling that by involving them in different activities is a really good idea. I like the
Yeah.
baking.
Yeah. I like the music one. They can learn a new instrument.
Very nice.
Yeah, what I appreciate is, again, we're back to discussing reinventing ourselves or recreating this holiday season and what really is important. And a lot of grief goes back to our identity, feeling kind of rudderless, right? Directionless. So those are excellent examples, Nancy, that you gave, and ways to learn new talents and express ourselves in unique ways. So I love those awesome tips.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. If you have any additional questions or follow up to what we have discussed today, please feel free to reach out to our bereavement department at any time.
Thank you.